Across the Desk
with Clement Manyatela
on 702.
So today on our Across the Desk feature, I am hosting private investigators. And I'd like to know if you've ever hired a private investigator, if you've ever used the services of a private investigator, and what was it for? Do you ever wonder what their job actually entails? That's what I want us to find out. I've got two that I've invited to join us this morning. Armand Trollip, who's the director at Quest Investigation Agency, here in studio with us. Armand, thank you so much for coming through. Good morning.
Pleasure, Clement. Good morning, everyone, and good morning to the 702 listeners.
We also have Chris Breed, who is the director of SSI Consultants. Chris, thank you so much for also making time. Good morning.
Morning, Clement. Thank you so much. Appreciate. Thank you for the listeners that we're going to be informative on this program. Thank you.
We want to find out about the work that you guys do, and I always want to start at the beginning. Have you always been involved in security, the police? What's your background, Armand, and how did you get to be a private investigator?
Clement, obviously, if you're in this industry, you need to have a bit of background. Mm-hmm. So I started my journey in the South African Police Services based in Soweto. So that was a very nice learning curve for us. Mm-hmm. Went to the banking industry, investigating fraud matters, and then I started my own business 36 years ago.
Oh, it's been 36 years?
36, broer.
Jeez. All right. Chris, and how about you? How did you start? And what made you find interest in being a private investigator?
Clement, my brother, I was a former military intelligence operative in old dispensation. And at the time, I thought, look, I need to obviously pursue new avenues, new directions, thinking and anticipating what I would do in due course in future. I then applied at a firm, a private investigator firm at that time in 93, the beginning of 93. Those years, there were very few of them, even though they were authentic and well trained. I then applied for a position there, and I got a position. I actually worked for them for a year and a half, and then I started my own business in 95. SSI Consultants, established in 95, as depicted on Google.
Okay. What kind of cases do you investigate, Armand? Like, what are the most common ones that your company investigates?
Okay. Clement, we had to deviate in 2015 and opening up my sister company as well. But we conduct a lot of corporate work out of Quest. Mm-hmm. That will entail fraud investigations, theft, polygraphing, investigating guys that commit, internal or external fraudulent stuff. Mm. And then obviously we, in the corporate fields, we also help the guys to do screening of staff and make sure that they hire the right people. So yes, corporate is quite vast because of the policies and integrities we need to keep with them. Mm-hmm. But yes, it's quite a vast majority that we will assist the client from whatever his issues or problems are, from the interview base, handling the investigation, gathering information lawfully, obviously, and then putting reports together and assist them with criminal matters that we need to, from time to time, open with the South African Police Services and make sure that we assist them as well to get the culprits brought to book. And then obviously we'll see it through until we get to the court dates and court appearances that we then obviously have to sit in and attend.
Mm-hmm. There's a card I have here, though, of your card. Cheating spouses, we can help. And it's got all your contact details here. So is that what you do as well?
I refer to our sister company that I had to deviate in 2015 because we also do and conduct matrimonial matters. So the reason why I gave you the card is to show you, Uya Jola 99. I'm the white version.
The white version of Uya Jola 99. Is it a big, okay, we'll talk about this later because I wonder 100%. how busy you guys get with this kind of stuff. How about you, Chris? What kind of stuff do you guys investigate at SSI Consultants?
Okay, I'm going to go one ahead a bit. We're primarily criminal investigators.
Yeah.
Because of the criminal situation in our country. But to go back in the early 90s, when I started off, we mainly started off with domestic matters, matrimonials, infidelity. And you'll see also on our website is a depiction of one of our domestic cheating spouse billboards back in 97 with a subsequent article in the Soweto newspaper of SSI Consultants back then. But yeah, the criminal investigations, mainly extortion, blackmail, kidnappings, planned, coerced kidnappings. We deal with criminals, and we obviously, our approach is very harsh and rigid when we approach these criminal elements and individuals once they've been identified. But yeah, mainly criminal matters, a lot of scams. A lot of people get scammed. You would purchase a vehicle under the false pretext that it's on a auction website, and you assume that it's authentic, and then you realize later that it's not, that you've been scammed. You paid 100,000 rand, and you end up calling us because you need assistance.
Yeah.
We help you in an instant.
Why do people then would come to you for something like that as opposed to go to the SAPS? Does this show the lack of confidence more and more people have in the system, that they, especially those, of course, with resources, because they've got to pay you guys, and they feel, I've got better chances of going to Armand Trollip than with the SAPS?
Clement, yes, it's, I don't want to step on toes here. We've got a government and the authorities that assist us, and we assist them. The problem that we sit with is that, authorities won't have enough resources to complete and do what needs to get done. Although there is divisions in the South African Police Service that attend and help us quite a bit. So yes, why will clients come to us? We've obviously got the resources and we get the information lawfully, just to add that. And we're very ethical and professional when it comes to investigations like that. The issue is at hand that although the client is going to pay, he knows that he's going to get results. In our industry, there's companies, and I just want to say this to the listeners, is that make sure that you deal with reputable private investigating companies like myself and SSI. Make sure that you set up a face-to-face meeting at office. Don't do coffee shops, or sometimes we hear people see private investigators in cars. So make sure that you use a reputable company, and they will assist you for sure. We are a handful of guys in the country, but I can tell you, I don't want to step on toes, but we have the resources. We will help a client to get through to, if we have to open up criminal cases. The problem that clients and listeners sit with is that they do approach a police station. The guys in the charge office are probably not trained properly, and I think they will sometimes see it as a civil matter instead of a criminal matter, but the criminal intent is there to get defrauded and the money being taken. So we assist them then to open up criminal matters.
And be clear about what can be investigated and okay.
Exactly.
So how do you work, Chris, with the SAPS? How's that relationship like? Like, once you've done the investigations as private investigators, can you then tell the client, here's the evidence, you go open a case, or you go with them, assist them? How does it work? How do you then escalate it to the law enforcement agencies, if at all?
Yeah, Clement, we're very fortunate because of our name out there and our contacts, and people know that we're authentic in a legitimate industry, that we know people higher up at the Hawks, DPCI, authorities, crime intelligence, that we can then contact and say, we've got this matter, can you please assist, even though we have finalized our provisional investigation, confirmed the set individuals, criminal elements, and that we would want to take it through to the respective police station or the appointed police station, and then engage with the appointed investigating officer, that if we do not get on or get moving forward, that they can certainly assist us, and then ultimately that we can guarantee the client that they get ultimate result in concluding the matter.
Okay. Yes.
Maybe I can add there, Clement. Chris, I think what we also find in the industry, once we have a client and we've investigated and we've helped them and we gathered all the evidence needed, we will assist them, Clement, to open a case at the South African Police Service, and make sure that, like we did this week, we were in KZN with fraud matters, 36 matters that we registered with police stations in KZN, and we met the colonels in charge of the police station, head of the police station, have a discussion with him so that we make sure that we get the cases registered. So the same with the investigation, Chris. Once you have the evidence and you go to the South African Police Service, we have a good relationship with the guys. So we'll take it as far as we need to go to make sure that the client will be helped, criminal matter will be opened and investigated. We make sure, and I'm sure Chris does as well, we make contact with the investigating officer. We'll have a meeting, we'll discuss the matter, and we'll debrief him on everything that we've done so that he's got a clear vision. And then we can also further assist in the investigation as well.
Okay.
We need it.
You mentioned earlier, Aman, that sometimes it's companies that say they want to, interview people, and they want to onboard someone. Do you have instances where companies come and say, okay, Clement has applied to be on the job and we like him, but we want to make sure he's clean?
If it's Clement, then I'm going to rather tell the people, no, don't. He's good at being a presenter, but that's Clement, just to answer you there. So, yes, obviously, we assist our corporate clients. We've got corporate clients on a retainer basis, very entry-level retainer, but we assist in screening people. If we finalize out of the 10, they've got 3 possible candidates. We will have interviews with them. We'll get the consent. We'll get them to sign the consent, and we do a criminal check. I've got the software and hardware to do it on site. And within 48 hours, we'll know if he's got a criminal record. And then obviously with him signing the consent forms, we will then also do a credit check. And we can give a due diligence document report back to clients saying, this is a good candidate, and the next one is maybe not so good.
Okay. Can the job get dangerous? Does it get dangerous?
Clement, I had a chat with Armand just before our meeting now, our interviews. Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. I have had death threats. But I think my experience where I come from and what I've learned and what I've challenged in life, I'm not afraid of anything. And you learn it every day because you get taught from the one case to the next case, how to then attend to that. But yes, most definitely, one initiate preventative measures in order to know that do your due diligence on the said subject, well, not a subject in this case, the criminal suspect, that you know who you're dealing with, that you might be apprehended, get a call, say if I do a case that I finalized and I had arrested the suspect and subsequent prosecution in the said court of law, and then say a family member would come forward or surface in some devious intent way, then to try and undermine me or take me on. So, look, most definitely preventative measures. I think the character that I have in myself, that I can definitely adapt to that.
Yeah. 011-883-0702. I'm hosting private investigators on our Across the Desk feature this morning, finding out about what their work entails. If you've got any question for them, maybe you have hired a private investigator before, just share your experience with us. What did you hire them for? And maybe as a corporation, You deal a lot with private investigation companies. How involved do they get in your operations or when you do interview processes? 011-883-0702. Send your WhatsApps as well on 072-702-1702. I want to ask now about, back to this chat, Armand, cheating spouses. Do you normally have, is it more spouses who come and say, I suspect that my husband or my wife or my partner is cheating and I want you to just, find out some more information about it? And when you do, what is the process? Do you say to them, okay, it is true, this is the case, or how does it work?
Okay, let me start off by saying, this is reality. It happens in South Africa. And I'm going to give you a bit of background how it works and what we do and what we say to clients. It's always an emotional ride, Clement. And my first question, probably when I have a meet-up with a client in my boardroom, I will ask if there's children involved. Sometimes it's not nice and it's ugly, and the children are the last guys that gets hurt badly. So I try to deviate from that. And, we in our company also have counseling support when it gets to that. So I'm going to give you a couple of things quickly if you have time for me.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
At Cheating Spouses, we help clients navigate suspected infidelity with lawful investigations and trauma-informed counseling support. So you can make a clear, confident decision without sacrificing privacy or dignity. What we do is we always discreet. We conduct lawful investigations, and that will entail surveillance, digital evidence where permitted, interviews, recording, and reporting as well. Counseling report delivered in parallel or after investigations via a registered independent professional. For example, we can collaborate with through therapeutic and neutral grounds with a counsellor. So what we do is we'll have the meetup, we'll discuss what client has. Sometimes our clients walk in there, male or female, and they have already obtained some information. So I'll always guide them through our website, which I will share with you guys later. We have at Cheating Spouses 10 warning signs. I always say to my clients, if you tick one of those boxes, we're in trouble.
What are the warning signs?
Clement, go and have a look on the website. There's 10 of them, but you know what? A couple of common ones is, if your partner is clinging onto his phone, all of a sudden he hits the gym again. Now he dresses up nicely and he smells nice. So there's a couple of warning signs if you see
I
them.
want to see them and read them to the listeners. Okay, what's the name of the website?
Quest Investigations.
Quest Investigations.
.co.za.
Okay.
You'll see it on the back of the card as well.
Quest Investigations.co.za. All right, I'm going to try and find them. I want to read them to the listeners. Let's go to some WhatsApps that have come through so far on 072-702-1702.
Good day, Clement. Yeah, I've got a question for those gentlemen. My question is, how much do they charge? Maybe a range or something like from 500 or from 1,000 or from 2, that much, or it depends on the case. And then another thing I just want to know, because we've got this human trafficking happening in our country. Do they work on such cases and all this stuff?
Okay, thank you so much for that, and apologies for the quality of that voice note. Please, when you send us voice notes, just switch off the radio so that we, or take down the volume so that we're able to hear what you say. From what I was able to pick up there, he's asking about how much normally you charge, like what is the normal rate, and do you only also investigate issues like human trafficking as well?
Okay, Clement, let me answer you, and it's always a difficult question, and myself and Chris always find us in this position when it comes to costs and funds, and what does a matter cost you to investigate. Always difficult. Depending on the background and the information that we get and obtain from a client, we can guide them accordingly what the process will entail and what the costs will be. So we have a better view after the consultation to then give a client costings. From my side, from Quest Investigation Agency and Cheating Spouses, our costs are the following. A consultation will be $850 to see us and have a discussion with us for an hour. We will then determine what the cost will be going forward. Our investigative hours are 850 Rand an hour if we work on your case.
Okay.
Not from the day you open the matter with us, but when we actually working your matter. And then there's a travelling fee of 750, I think it is, per kilometre if we have to drive somewhere, etc. And if we conduct surveillance, etc.
Okay.
So that's what I can give the listeners. It's always difficult to say, you know.
It depends on your situation, and you take it from there. And then for you, Chris?
You were referring to
Yeah,
cost?
yeah,
or
the
just
issue of-
start off the domestics with the infidelity.
So I'll get you to, you can start with the infidelity first, yeah.
Okay. Clement, what I've learned and which I know very well engaging with clients, that you have to be so discreet in your approach. Discretion
100%.
is top. Confidentiality at all times. Because one, you've got to
100%.
take care of your client, because you realize that he or she could be in an emotional state, and you've got to be very sincere in your approach. But yeah, you've got to, you know, if you want to get to the cost implication, can we go ahead with that? Yeah, I'm a bit more expensive than Quest, sorry. But the reason being is my rates are 1.5 an hour, 1,500. This includes the kilometre inclusion of, respective of what kilometres.
Is that for
you drive.
consultation or for in the
Okay, let's start with the
investigation?
consultation. The consultation is also more expensive, it's 1,500 an hour.
Okay.
The surveillance is 1.5 an hour, minimum 4 hours, so that would be 6,000 Rand. The reason being is because, one, it's not like the old days that it's not viable for us. In other words, for me to pursue a subject in peak hour traffic is not helping, because at times you would have to use a secondary vehicle, second agent, and you got to be discreet. You cannot just, it's not like the movies that you could just be on, heads on. So you've got to pull off sometimes, you know, back off a bit.
Change cars if you have
Change
to.
cars and all of that. So you look at, also again, as every case is unique with a unique cost implication, you have to look at the dynamics of such an investigation. But with the domestics, that is a standard rate. With the surveillance, done, what we then gather through that is either photographic evidence or video footage, whichever comes through, done discreetly at all times.
Okay. So we've got some more WhatsApps and calls coming through. We'll get to them after the latest in Eyewitness News headlines.
Across the desk
With Clement Manyatela.
on 702.
24 minutes before 11 o'clock, I've got private investigators on our Across the Desk feature this morning. What question do you have for them? And if you have hired a private investigator before, what was it for? I'd like you to share your experiences with us. Maybe you're in the same industry yourself and you want to share how the industry is like. You can call on 011-883-0702. Your WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. A message on the WhatsApp line says, "Hi Clement, I hope you and your guests are good there. I've always had an interest in becoming a professional private investigator. I want to know from them if it is something one has to go to training for or university to become one, or are there institutions that offer training on this profession? Thank you." That's a message from Tabo in Soweto. Do you need to go? Can you go to an institution to study for something like this? How does it work?
Well, let me answer your listener as well. Tabo, good morning. There's a couple of universities that you can go to. We would advise our young people, make sure that you get CERA registered if you're going to get into the field. Study forensic investigator courses, and start in entry-level roles like research or interviewing, and then find a mentor and build a reputable and reputation and integrity. So there's a couple of universities that you can study these courses. UP, you can study a BSc in forensic science. UNISA, you can undergo forensic investigations. that will entail cybercrime, economic crimes, and forensic crime intelligence. And then you, Jay, you can do your High Certificate in Criminal Justice and Forensic Investigations, NQF Level 5, and it's 1 year study that you can do that, or part-time. And then obviously UKZN, KwaZulu-Natal University, University of Cape Town, Stellenbosch and Witwatersrand, you can go there. And you need to do that, obviously, to get the study behind you, but I think Chris will assist me here. Your skills and being in the field and the experience you gather when you do investigations will definitely assist. And obviously, if you've been in the South African Police Service, that's a good background to have. But they can go and study for this.
All right. There's a question here, Chris, that someone is also asking. Let's listen to this. What's up?
Good day, Clement. I would like you gentlemen there to tell us, how do we tell a scam? Where do we check if there's a body they registered to? Because I was once scammed because I was desperate, wanted them to check immediately. And they made me do payments, cash payments. Then I paid through the account and they didn't pay me back. So I didn't know where to check to know they are genuine, because every profession has a body they register to. If they can tell us there what to do, how to check. Thank you.
Okay, so how do you verify that this is a registered, private investigator and they're legit?
Okay, good morning to your listener, Margul. Nice to hear from you. Good, thank you for that question. Okay, so there are ways and methods and means to identify and verify a scam, mainly because a lot of scams are being committed nowadays. People, as I always say, desperate times, desperate measures. So just in the case of a so-called car scam, where it depicts on Google that this company is it seems to be authentic company that sells motor vehicles, and they do send you an invoice, because normally the process is that you would request an invoice to proceed with the payment. Then you have to obviously look at the fine print on the telephone numbers, make sure those numbers are then registered in the actual company. Is that because what these individuals do, they then would get familiar companies or companies that are registered, that have been in the business long, with a name out there that they would use to scam you. So then on that said invoice, one would have to follow through with all the fine print. Yes, the account number, make sure it's in the name of that said company, even though they would use that similar name to open a banking account. But look at the finer print. If there's a VAT number depicted on the invoice, scrutinize that or engage our services, myself or Quest investigators, that we can follow through with the due diligence in order to ascertain conclusively the authenticity of the said company. But just further on the invoice, yes, VAT number, registration number, then again, approach us with that, see if that actual company is registered, even though the company that is depicted on the invoice would reflect under our systems that we initiate to authenticate people and said companies, and to make sure that a registration number does appear. And if it's not the same registration number as the company, legitimate company, then yes, for sure this is a scam. All right.
Okay, so but verify. Yeah. That's always very important.
Ultimately.
Maybe I can just add, Clement, you know what, and I think Chris will acknowledge this. The best thing that the listeners can do is get a reputable private investigator, make sure that he's registered to see it on all the authority and bodies, set up a face-to-face meeting, and let's discuss before you lose money. If we do get documents or invoice like Chris referred to, we are the right people to make sure that will do the due diligence, we'll confirm that it's a legitimate transaction, and we'll give the heads up, or we'll tell the client rather not. Stay away, because we get a lot of those cases anyway.
Yeah, okay. Here's another WhatsApp voice notes that have come through. And while I played, there's someone who's asking about what is the most intriguing case you've ever worked on. And so while you think about that, here's a question that's also come on the WhatsApp line.
Hi, Clement. I just want to know from the gentleman there, what are the tools of the trade that private investigators need or will need or use in their job? Thank you.
Okay, tools of trade. What do you need? What do you work with?
Well,
I mean, you need a gun for sure.
100%. You need a couple of guns.
You must know how to drive fast.
100%. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to be diligent, and you need to be wide awake when conducting investigations or surveillance, etc. The tools that we need in the industry is actually high tech, and we try to keep that to ourselves, Chris.
Don't reveal all the secrets. There's a reason you are private investigator.
Exactly. I can't give you my all the things that we use and do. So the tools that you need is, you need to have a good background. Make sure that you're registered with all the local authorities that you need to be reputable and be existing in a company that can handle these matters. And then obviously, like you said, you need some guns and whatever to protect yourself. But you also need good high-tech equipment if we do conduct surveillance, Chris, to take the photographs, to take the videos, and make sure that when we gather information, we have a lot of search engines legally that we then approach, and we get a lot of information to make sure that we have gathered and obtained the right information when doing an investigation.
Okay. And the most intriguing case you ever worked on?
Well, again, in this business, you've got to be very discreet, client discretion. You cannot disclose or divulge any information, or the said client for that matter. So it depends. Every case is unique. Yeah, intriguing, there's a lot, depending on when and where, and whether it's a domestic matter or criminal matter. But I'm going to be light on it, because I don't want to divulge too much on criminal matters, because we could sit here and talk the whole day. But very with the domestic matters, to play the game, hide and seek, in order to get results. And the information that you get, the evidence that you gather, that at times that you feel that, this is not possible. How could it be possible? And the set evidence that you need to relate to your client, to say, but this the reason being why your husband had an affair, or vice versa.
Do you talk to people on the ground as well, interview people when you're investigating even those domestic issues? And are you not scared that they may then start telling?
No.
Clement,
no, not at all. Not at all. And I'm sure Armand will agree with me. It's the absolute discretion between yourself and your client. You do not disclose anything, not even to a friend. I mean, because that remains between you and the client at all times, because you would not know what could happen in due course in the future. Because within my case, being discreet and being honest and executing my investigations very well, I have clients that have come back to me on an annual basis, or 2 years or 3 years, that they phone me. The same client with the same matter,
same domestic
matter. And what is interesting here, Clement, is that they use you find these rich ladies. If I go back in the 90s, they would pay up to 150, 300,000 just to get proof
that the husband
that they can show their husbands, look, I have evidence. Yes, this is you. This is what you're all about. All your lies. This has come to surface now. And they would then return in a year and say,
do the
my
same
husband's
thing?
back to mischief. One has to obviously have to follow through again.
Yeah.
And but again, indirectly they pay because these rich ladies would pay with their husband's credit cards. You know?
Yeah. Oh, they use the husband's money
They
to.
would find money, so that's not a problem for them. And we do, it's always better. It's there always to help anybody in any situation. Doesn't matter what you got. A private investigator has to have that sincere emotion.
Okay.
You have to have that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's only fair that if he's already cheating, so use his credit card.
100%.
Just use it to investigate him.
100%.
And Armand, for you, what's been the most intriguing case? Without, of course, talking about the clients, but just the generals of it.
I'll get to that now, Clement. Just to add to Chris, maybe. We always say to our clients, probably a leopard never loses his spot. So, we try to do counseling and see if we can save that marriage. But sometimes it works, sometimes it don't work. So 6 months later or a year later, you'll probably get your client back in your office. So we make sure, just to touch on that we sign mandates, we get consent from the client, and we also sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, because all that information is private and discreet, and we keep that at office like that. So to tell you about a case that tested me, one memorable case involved tracing stolen corporate funds. So we do a lot of assets investigations, etc. So the stolen corporate funds across multiple accounts and jurisdictions, it required weeks, and I mean weeks of coordination with attorneys, forensic, SAPS, and to obtain the right Section 205s from SAPS and or a summons drawn, and, we can get the information. The breakdown came through from a single overlooked transaction. So we always say, prove that persistence pays off.
Clement, sorry if I may ask, I was actually following through with the domestic. I thought the intriguing matter would refer to domestic, but can I just
yes, please
talk about a criminal matter? It was back in 98. A client engaged me that his son was a drug addict, abusing drugs, and that he was sought by a drug cartel then.
Oof.
And we then were assigned or mandated the investigation.
To check who the drug cartel is?
To actually go and find, because this son was subsequently kidnapped and he was taken to Swaziland.
Oh.
And he was hid in the mountains. One had to proceed through the swamps towards the mountains in order to find him. I actually did this on my own because I didn't want to jeopardize my teams, make sure that they're okay, that was a very tough one. And being alone in the dark at night in a foreign country, in the wilderness. And
couldn't you find some local guys you could get to give you some
I had to
protection?
go through villages, and it was very quiet. I ended up, luckily and fortunately, I think my faith had remained with me, because I happened to see a church, and I did do a bit of a prayer, because at times you have to because of the severity of cases and the dangerous work that one does. But anyway, we were not. Well, I wasn't successful. Well, I was successful in pursuing the matter in the mountains and all of that. But we could not find the boy. He was 19 years old at the time. And a week later, I heard that he was found deceased in Brazil. All right, so that is...
How were they able to move him to Brazil?
Yeah, you see, these sophisticated syndicates, they know how to go about in their criminal activities. And, today, currently, you hear about a lot of drug cartels, especially higher up. That's in the news. But back then, yes, it was there, because it wasn't just that, it wasn't exposed that much. But I happened to get that case. So, you just got to follow through. And I think what my experience that I've gained with military intelligence, and I would say the approach I had and the readiness and afraid of nothing, and what I've gained and skilled has helped me through that investigation.
How do you guys cope with the psychological or emotional toll that certain cases can bring?
Yeah, Clement, I think in the beginning the same with Chris, it used to get to us and, because we showed sympathy with our clients, it gets to you. But we've learned through the years to rather have empathy. So we understand what's going on. We'll assist where we can. And there's some matters, I did a attempted murder case on the farms one day, and I don't want to say where because it's still hurting the family, where elderly couple were assaulted and stabbed with knives, and we had to go back to the scene and gather evidence. So not all the evidence was gathered from the South African Police Services. So it took us 3 days in that messy, bloody house or home where they lived and where they ran from the kitchen to bedrooms and wherever. So we analyzed and we gathered information for 3 days. So when I get home at night, I smelled like blood. So that got to me and it still sticks with me. But we've learned, and I think Chris will confirm this, we've learned to have empathy and we're used to it. There's a lot of stuff, and I say this with all due respect, that my wife doesn't know what I'm doing. And it keeps her safe. We've got at our office, because we work national, and I've got a couple of offices through the country, all our staff know that we can rely on each other. We'll share and debrief every matter, and that's how we,
talk about it
and get it off our chest.
Yeah. Here's a WhatsApp voice note that's also come through.
Good morning. Is it true that it's best to work alone as a private investigator? Only because people can be bought and people can be manipulated, and if you are working alone, you cannot double cross or sell yourself.
I'll get with that, and then Chris can probably follow in that. Yes, you can work alone. Obviously, you can. There's no restrictions to that. But having the staff that I have right through the country, we are trained, and we have loyal investigators that will stick to our morals and our code of conduct in the company. So everything will be not disclosed. We'll internally disclose it to each other. We cannot be bought. You don't have enough money to start with that, and we don't do that. We've heard of, let's call it fly-by-nights, private investigators that will do a matrimonial, get evidence, and go to the other part and demand more money.
More money. So that's extortion now.
Extortion. Then they'll extort the other party just to make money. So we have enough work. We, myself and Chris, has been in the industry long enough. We have enough work, and we don't work by those ethics. You come to me, and you'll remain my client forever.
Chris, for you, sometimes, you've already know in this case, because it was so dangerous, you decided to work alone. Does it happen often or only on specific cases?
Yes, Clement, I'm actually fortunate because the guys that I have are genuine, because I call them my lead detectives. Because if I get a case in the Eastern Cape, say Miditsani, if it's a kidnapping, I know the cops there that I can trust. And normally senior officers that I can engage with, that I know. But yes, every investigator is unique. But as cases, as your years, when you started initially, you build contacts. And it's very good to have contacts and have somebody that you can trust within your company. But I've learned through my industry that, yes, as I go ahead or forward with cases, respective cases, doesn't matter what the charge is or the complaint is, that I make sure that I can execute well because I have a bit of a backup.
Okay. Yeah. How do people get a hold of you? Amand, at Quest Investigation Agency. You gave us the website earlier, actually.
Yeah, I gave. I'm going to read quickly all our telephone numbers. And I'm going to ask the listeners not to call us after 10, myself or Chris. We get calls 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't help you that time of the morning. But engage with us either by WhatsApp or leave us a phone call, whatever. So just to give you where they can reach us, we on social media all over. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. They will find us, Quest Investigation Group. So there they can engage with us. Other than that, our telephone numbers in Joburg, 011 425 4446 or 425 4578.
Okay. And the WhatsApp?
WhatsApp number 082 654 9999. And that's also my number. But please, guys, let's just stick to WhatsApps for now.
Okay.
Our Cape Town branch 021 569 8888 or 8889.
Okay. And for you, Chris, how do they get a hold? Are you guys on social media? Do you have contact number?
Yes, Clement, if you Google private investigators in South Africa or Sandton, we're primarily in Sandton, but we're based nationwide. So if you Google private investigators in Sandton or South Africa, you'll see SSI Consultants, established 95, strategic in-depth investigations. Our national number being 087 550 3007. Our WhatsApp number 078 007 1412. Yes, you can WhatsApp in any time. If your child goes missing on a Saturday night, she goes out with a friend. She says she's going to sleep over. The next morning she doesn't come home. You can call us. We're always available on WhatsApp anytime.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. We can assist you on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Okay. That's we've gotten the numbers, and if you didn't get any of that, please just call the producers. They'll give them over to you. Amand Trollip, Chris Britt, thank you so much for making time for us.
Anytime. Thank you, Clement, and thank you to the listeners. It was very nice.